Well, welcome everybody. I'm sure that some other people will be coming in, but we'll get started. I am Julie Moody Freeman, the director for the Center for Black Diaspora, and I'm also an associate professor in the Department of African and Black Diaspora Studies. I would like to introduce you to my associate director or assistant director, Joelle.
Hi, everybody. Good evening. Thank you for joining us today for this wonderful talk for which I'm very excited to be a part of. And thank you for joining us for the Center's third virtual event.
All right, and that is Joelle Daly. I also, this event is co-organized by the Women's Center, so I'd like to introduce you all. I'm Lucy, who's the director for the Women's Center.
Yeah, I'm so happy to see you. I'm the director of the Women's Center, and I'm also a professor in Women's and Gender Studies. And I'm very, very honored and excited to be collaborating on this event with the Center for Black Diaspora. So welcome.
All right, good. So quickly before I introduce our panelists today, I'd like to acknowledge all those who have been very instrumental in making this event possible. The center staff for Black Diaspora, Farad DeBerry, Jessica Williams, and Jennifer Ogumiki. From the Women's Center staff, Belinda Andrade, Amalia Salmeron, and Nina Wilson. Thank you so much. I'd also like to extend thanks to the Dean's Office, including Dean Guillermo Vasquez de Velasco, Molly Bench, Susana Pagliaro, and Associate Dean, Dr. Jacqueline Lazu. So before I introduce you to our panelists today, let me just sort of lay out an outline of what will happen. I'll introduce the panelists, they'll lead the discussion, then we'll move to viewers' questions. Joelle Daly, who you just met, will lead this. Her chat is enabled throughout the event, so keep sending her questions, and we will leave the last 20 minutes for all of your questions, because I'm sure you have a ton. I know I do. So send her questions, and then she'll do her best to accommodate you, given or allotted time frame, and then we'll finish at 7 exactly. So quickly for introductions, I would first like you to meet Sonya Seifer. Sonya, can you say hi?
Hi, everybody.
There you go. All right. So Sonya is an acupuncturist and herbalist of traditional East Asian medicine. She's a general practitioner and treats a wide variety of ailments, including chronic pain, digestive issues, irregular menstrual cycles, and emotional distress. She has a non-judgmental approach and a space for patients to set their own intentions and timelines for healing. She practices at Bluebird Wellness on Chicago's Northwest Side and is working with patients online as well as during the pandemic. And that will be your first panelist. Our second is Khadijah.
Hello.
Khadijah is a licensed acupuncturist and board certified herbalist. In addition to her private practice, Khadijah is a clinical supervisor at Pacific College of Health and Science. She's currently a doctoral fellow at 5 Branches University, San Jose. Her formal education includes a degree in creative writing, University of Ann Arbor, and master's in science and oriental medicine, Pacific College of Health and Science, Chicago. Her professional interests include neurological disorders, addiction recovery, and issues related to scar tissue and past injuries. One recent innovation in her practice is the combining of classical Chinese medicine principles with trans-state induction via breath work and other non-needle therapies as a way of discovering the innate and renewable resources that remain untapped. Please welcome Sonya and Khadijah. I'm so excited for this event. Thank you for being here. All right.
Thank you. Khadijah, I'm going to unmute you. So there's a pandemic, and as herbalists, it's something we've been following really closely since January, getting reports from China hearing what they're doing. And then when it came to Chicago in March, we started seeing patients who were not getting tested, but had many of the symptoms of COVID. And so that's gotten us thinking about what people do know, what they don't know about Chinese medicine, and helping people understand how it can help them. Khadijah, what have you been hearing from people about what they know, what they don't know?
It's all over the place. It's really all over the place. I didn't really come prepared to talk about that so much as to kind of, show people what we're thinking about when we do see certain symptoms. And, thinking through that strategy, it's not that it's no way out. It's just that, most things we're used to following a progressive kind of thing, but this just kind of comes and it arrests several systems at once. And so that's where you get all the complexity. So I would say that, and that it's really true that there's a lot of fast moving aspects to it, and that I did modify formulas every other day. For those of you who don't know about Chinese herbalism, the normal thing is to come once a week and get a decoction or tong of some sort. And I was doing different things every other day with this when people had these symptoms. So so that was all over the place. What we think is all over the place. The whole symptoms are mimicking, where it arises.
Well, and I think one of the interesting things about COVID is what we see with it is we see that one of the principles of our medicine is that we treat each person. We don't have a protocol that we apply to everyone. We treat each person based on who they are and how they are. And COVID forces that. Early on, doctors were realizing that ventilators maybe weren't working for everyone, and they needed to take a step back and look at what was going on. So that's part and parcel of our medicine. And the more symptoms that come out, the more fascinated we are, like the COVID toes that have been talked about recently, because for us, we can see how it all plays together and how a different person's body would have different kinds of symptoms. So today I'm going to talk just generally about immunity and how you can build your health at home, because I know a lot of people are worried. And then Khadijah will talk about this more specifically in terms of the medicine that we practice. Does that sound right?
It sounds right.
Okay.
See how it comes out. That's the intention, everybody.
That's our goal. So, and we'll be taking some time. Yeah, we'll be taking some time to actually do some healing practices. So we're not just talking to you, because I know that students and professors alike are spending a lot of time just listening and talking. So I'm going to try to share my screen. We'll see what happens. All right. So one question we heard from a lot of people early on, friends and family alike, was what's one thing that they could take to boost their immunity? Could they get elderberry syrup? Could they take a lot of vitamin C? And the answer to that is that your immunity is the sum total of your whole health. So unfortunately, there's no one pill you can take. There's no one formula we would give to patients that would protect them and protect their health in general. So I'm going to open that up now and talk about what we think that health is. So some of the big ideas in Chinese medicine is this idea of zhong qi. That's your upright or your righteous qi. And that's the sum of all of the process of your body. And the idea is that when your zhong qi is correct, when you're in good health, even if an illness goes through, you wouldn't get sick. So that would be sort of the 25% of asymptomatic people. Either they're lucky or their zhong qi is in good shape. And then the other idea within this is that you don't just get to have zhong qi, you have to keep it up at home. So yang shen are activities that cultivate life. And I'm going to go over the things I've talked to all my patients about the past 2 months about how to really protect their health, improve their health, keep their qi upright and strong in the face of what's coming at you, because our bodies are designed to be permeable. Our bodies are designed to interface with the world. Our bodies are designed to interface with illness and not get terribly ill if we treat our bodies correctly. So this idea of zhong qi, it's the idea that we are the medium between heaven and earth. You get the yang energy above, the yin energy below, and our spinal cord is the circuit. And if we are in alignment, physically and health-wise, the energy can flow through us. The yin-yang energy can flow through us. We can get fresh energy from heaven. We can release anything we don't want into the earth. And that's something we really see in Qigong practice, and we'll be doing a little bit of Qigong today. So one thing I think most people know about is the idea of fight or flight mode versus rest or digest mode. That's a familiar topic, I think, for most people from science classes. And I think that most of us understand that when we're in fight or flight mode, we're not healing. Because when we're in fight or flight mode, we're making sure we don't die right now. And anyone who's ever had a panic attack, it's very real to you. Like, you're not pooping, you're not digesting, you probably aren't, able to have a few different processes going on in your mind at once because you're just trying to stay alive. Rest and digest mode is the mode where we are digesting, we're healing, we're sleeping. And the goal for all of us should be to try to really find a lot of time to be in that rest and digest, that parasympathetic mode, so we can heal. This is a challenge during a pandemic. Most people are more stressed than they've ever been. Most people are really having trouble resting, whether it's sleep at night or during the day, just putting your feet up and chilling. This can be a challenge for people whose bodies suffer from chronic illness. This can be a problem we've definitely seen in Chicago for people of colors whose bodies experience what's called a weathering effect from institutional racism. And I'm sure you're talking about this in your classes, but if you haven't, there was a podcast recently with Dr. David H. Miller, and he talks about his research showing how bodies are affected over time, especially African American and Latinx folks, that you see effects on people's long-term health. And let me go back to this. So on a brighter note, we can all protect our health, no matter how horrible society or the people in charge are. We can take care of ourselves at home as best we can. And a lot of this you know already, but as I often say to my patients, sometimes if someone else tells you to do something, you'll actually do it, even if you knew you were supposed to do it anyway. So the first thing that everyone should be trying to do at home is get regular sleep. Have a set sleep time, have a set wake time. If you haven't heard of sleep hygiene, that's the idea that you actually put yourself to bed like you're a baby, but we all still need to do that even though we're adults. So no screens in your bedroom. You need to maybe chill out before bedtime, read yourself a bedtime story, use essential oils like lavender. You can even take a foot bath, a 15-minute foot bath before bedtime to help bring that excess energy in your head down into your feet. Ideally, you should fall asleep easily, and when you wake up, you should feel rested. So that's an ideal sleep practice. And I will say that throughout time, people have not slept the same amount, and throughout time, people haven't slept in one long 8 hours. Your sleep might be segmented. There's an idea, it comes up in, I think, like 15th century of England, of a first sleep and a second sleep. So maybe you get up every night and you're awake for an hour, but you can go back to sleep. That's fine. But really respecting your sleep and respecting the fact that most people are not going to fall asleep, you need to settle down before you go to bed. So that's something everyone can do at home right now. And maybe you're doing it already because people are talking about this in the regular media. The other really big idea in Chinese medicine is that food is the first medicine, as one of our herbalists said. And one of the really big and different ideas for us is that you should only eat warm food. No salads. Don't eat salads. A lot of people are eating salads. They think it's a healthy choice. It's very hard to put an ice cold block of lettuce on your digestive fire. So one easy way to protect your health is to eat only warm food, drink only warm drinks. And that's something I think most people can do right away. You want to avoid foods that create phlegm, and those are all my favorite foods: fried food, rich food, dairy, beer, wheat, cheese, delicious. But you don't want to eat those all day, every day, because they're going to make you more phlegmy. And especially at a time where we have a respiratory illness, we want to avoid foods that create what we call phlegm. And you're familiar with that. It's hard to take a deep breath, you got to in your throat, or you have allergies. Other ideas in Chinese medicine are that you should try to eat in a relaxed manner. You shouldn't be studying when you eat. You shouldn't be reading the news when you eat. You should be just enjoying your food. And indeed, the idea is that in enjoying your food, you'll digest it better. It'll actually give you more health benefits if you're eating something you love. And then the final idea with eating is, ideally, you shouldn't feel tired and bloated after you eat. if you feel tired, if your legs feel heavy after you eat, that meal wasn't a good meal for you, or your digestive fire is really weak. So we should be able to eat a meal, rest for a minute, and then get on with our day. And then my final tip is to move your breath, to do some deep breathing every day, and to move your body every day. I'm encouraging my patients to do something energetic for 5 minutes every day, and then do something calming every day, because most people are stagnant. Their chi isn't moving because they're sitting in a chair a lot of the day. So they need to move, whether it's doing jumping jacks, having a dance party, just sitting in a chair and moving your arms around, just get yourself moving. But then people also need to relax, because people are stressed. They are finding themselves falling into fight or flight mode when they read the news throughout the day. So taking time to really rest and relax. And Tai Chi and Qigong are two different movement ideas from Chinese medicine that allow you to do both. Tai Chi is a little more choreographed. You're probably familiar with that from the movies because it looks cooler. Qigong is more of a repetitive breath work, a moving meditation where you do the same movement again and again to move the chi through your channels and help your body calm down. So one cool thing about this virus is that we got to see treatments in Wuhan using Chinese medicine. So patients were given herbs, and patients also did Qigong and Tai Chi in the hospital. So this is a picture of a hospital ward. You see this really great PPE the doctors have. And these are patients who are recovering from COVID doing Tai Chi. If you live with other people, it's a lot easier to adopt yang sheng practices if you make everybody do it. So if you're the only one doing deep breathing, doing Qigong, people might make fun of you or they might not get on board. Try to get everyone on board. These are good for everybody. They're doable by everybody. Try to make a daily plan. If it's just you, still try to make a daily plan. But if you live with other people, however old or young they are, it's good to try to get everyone involved in these activities, because then you're going to be more accountable, more likely to do them. Sorry, I'm losing my screen. If you're looking for a movie recommendation with yang sheng practices, The Farewell, which is a movie that came out last year or 2 years ago, you might have seen it already. You'll see the grandmother in this movie taking foot soaks before bed, doing Qigong, eating these really wonderful meals with all these great warm foods. You'll see different characters getting cupping as well. So that's a nice example of a movie where you can see an older person who has a health problem doing these yang sheng activities, and you can see how healthy she looks. There she is. She looks great. That's the grandma. If you feel like you can't take care of yourself at home, do know that acupuncture and herbs are a great way to support your health in general, and that we also do treat the symptoms of COVID, symptoms of cold and flu. And Khadijah will talk more in her section about that. Okay, so we're going to do some Qigong now. Are we ready? I'm going to stop my share. So I'm going to stand up and you're going to stand up too, right? So if you're seated, you can do this seated. If you can stand up, go ahead and stand up. And I know I can't see a lot of you, but I can see some of you. So if I can see you, you should be standing up. You know who you are. Yeah. Come on, Ian, let's go. Okay. So the unfortunate thing about your camera being up, and I'm sure everyone whose camera I can't see is doing this already. So we're going to start by just shaking our arms and legs. And I'm going to throw some stuff on the ground. So all the channels of our body ends in our hands and feet. So if you shake your arms, yes, you're going to look a little crazy. That's okay. So we don't want people closer than 6 feet. This is going to move the chi through all the channels in your body. Once again, if you're sitting down, you can do this sitting. You don't need to be standing. That's right. That's some very good shaking going on. And you can shake your legs. Take your legs out. And really feel the energy move through your body. Now we're going to do some swings. So you're going to swing side to side and just let it go. You can hit yourself and really let yourself swing. All right, and now we're going to do one traditional Qigong movement, which is pulling down the heaven, with the idea that we're going to reach up and pull down heavenly energy. We're going to be doing deep belly breathing. So you want to breathe down into your belly. So bend your knees. Let your body sink down into the earth. Take some nice deep belly breaths. Once again, you can do this seated. Nice deep belly breath. So we're going to reach up. Move my camera. You're going to reach above your head, but keep your shoulders relaxed. And then you're going to bring your hands down flat across your torso. So you're going to breathe in and then breathe out. If you're not doing this, you're missing out. Deep breath in and down to your body. Deep breath in and out. The idea is that we're reaching up and grabbing some healing energy from the skies, and then we're bringing it down through our organs. So you can imagine that you're reaching up and grabbing some healing energy and bringing it down. Reach up and come down. Let's do a few more times. Deep breath in and out. Deep breath in and out. So that's an example of some really simple Qigong. It's easy to find stuff online that you can do. Everybody can do it. You can do it when you're seated. You can do it when you're standing. It's just so important to move in ways that are gentle and healing. That's a great dog too, Ian. All right, so that was my spiel on immunity. Basically, you have to do everything you're supposed to do. I'm sorry. This is the way it is. So you need to sleep well, you need to eat well, and you need to move your body in ways that are healing and gentle and kind. So I'm gonna turn it over to Khadijah, and she's gonna take you to our next chapter.
I prepared some tongues to show you, to show you how we diagnose. And that, here we go. That we can take an image, or we can take what we know from looking externally and extrapolate what's going on in the inside. Because this tongue tells us things about the state of the body fluids. It tells us things about what's going on with the digestion. And it's also a topographical map of systems and places in the body. So many of you have seen that foot that's like a reflexology map. We have somatic maps all throughout our body, right? You know this because you look at that, that map of the brain, the homunculus. Everybody's seen that in science class, and it says, oh, well, this part is the foot part, and then there'll be like a nose next to the foot part, and you're like, whatever. So same thing with the tongue, only it's much more simple. The tip and the first like third or so is the lung area. And so it's easy to see what's going on with the lung. It's actually curling up. We don't want it. We want a nice, spongy, open, soft lung. We don't want it curling up. And then you see here, I want to take a pointer. You see here, well, you can see here in the middle section, even as the tongue begins to unfurl, where there was like a lot of heat. This was soon after, you know, I gave the formula. The fever broke immediately within the first dose, right? But all throughout, there were abdominal symptoms, right? There was diarrhea, things that were inconsistent with what people would think of as a hot presentation. But the chi mechanism was broken, and you'll find out what I mean about that. So you can see it's still pretty thick here. You can imagine what's going on in the center, nausea. You can see that sort of turbidity and like, you know, stuckness. I just want to show you that. So here we have some, what do we have? Fractals. So here are the therapeutic principles that I've been operating from, not just during COVID, but just this is what I like. This is what works for me in my practice. And this is the way it is in Chinese medicine. You know, there's a fractal nature to reality, so that every part contains the whole. And there's a recurrence of patterns on smaller and smaller scales. So when we say that the organism must open to make contact with the world, we're talking about on the cellular level, there's an opening and closing. There's the opening, closing of respiration. It has to do with what one of my teachers calls the multivalent character of classical, any kind of classical learning, is that these things can be of others. You know, there's a book called the Poetics of Everything, and it talks about, you know, it talks about these things. And so I cite from a lot of different places. So I'm into that. Sonya is into that. We're into fractal nature of reality and holograms, man. So the next thing, the next principle is very resource oriented. And this is consistent with how we learn our primary theoretical way of giving herbs is Shanhan Lun. And it's a very resource oriented text. And Sonya is a scholar of that text. And I could see from the way that even this was structured, we kind of started from the outside and now we're going inwards, more inwards. And so there's this notion of Chinese medicine as a time-space medicine. So when we talk about levels, we're talking about depths and things that happen over time. And what happens to an entity and what happens to our bodies and what happens to our mind over time. So what that means, practically speaking, is that I try to cooperate. Sonya already hit on this. She has a similar practice, I'm understanding, and there's kind of a non-hierarchical relationship, even though I know this person is coming here with this lens that I'm going to tell them what to do. When I make suggestions, it's because of what's been revealed in conversation and diagnostically. So I find it very therapeutic to repeat back to them what I see. And that's reinforcing the message of what we're going to correct. And you know, for a long time, I looked at Erickson some years ago, and now I'm starting a little bit of hypnosis. And it's a funny word because all it is what Sonya and every other colleague I know, that's all it is what we do anyway, is, you know, bring people to a state of that's resourceful, a mental, emotional state that's resourceful, whatever that is. And I'm gonna keep going because I know I'm gonna hit 6 o'clock. So here is a 5-element framework. And when we say 5-element framework, it's kind of it's a model that we use for understanding what happens to forms, human forms, any kind of forms, in different phases, right? And over time. And what direction does that take? Where the evolutionary direction is always kind of like, you know, the way the sun goes, the way the clock goes. So we have, usually fire would be at the top. I don't know why this one I took off the internet. Ideally, I would have put fire at the top. I made another one I'm going to show you. So there's this energy, this beautiful outward expansive energy, which is your heart, basically, your spirit, your heart spirit, that's in control of all the vessels and all the spirits. And by spirits, I mean each one 5 has a psycho-emotional dynamic that it oversees as well. And it breaks down into color and all of this. And some of you may be Western style herbalists and understand doctrine of signatures. So even in these kind of models, we can understand, why does a flower treat the head? It's the head of something. What is it that all heads have in common, you know? So these are things that I literally sit down and think about. What is that? Well, I mean, I'm going to venture to answer my own question, you know? So we have all the sense orifices in the head at delivering information about the outside world back to the heart. Slide 7. Here's another way to say it. Now, this time I took the earth and put it in the middle. And this is the way Shanhan Lun people do it. This is the way my professors do it, because we have this model showing how that first one was more in isolation. You know, you can see the movements, you can see how transmission can happen, you can see how some systems obstruct the other system. But this one is like, okay, how do we interact with the cosmic chi and you never know what's out there? You never, ever know what's out there. We have to have some way of opening and closing to experience so that we can evolve. So that's where here, this earth, that's us. That's our body. That's our Zheng Qi. That's our constitution. That's our intellectual accumulations. That's our physical body, what makes us an entity. And that comes out of here, out of, well, let me get my pointer again. Out of water. Our genetics is giving us some of this. So it is what we eat and drink, but that's only half the story. We have genetics, and there are mysterious things going on down here in the water. But this is where we derive a lot. It's from the collective, and there's a lot of potential here. And as we grow through life, you know, this is a womb state. This is the state that we're in when we're at home and protected and know that it's okay to go off to school, for water to nourish the wood enough so that it can advance, assert itself personally, right? Go off to school without having stomach aches, without the wood harassing the earth and feeling bullied, if we have enough nourishment here. So this is a major axis as well. Here we have the fire. This is awareness, creativity, and interpersonal bonds. And then, and that goes straight up, right? Then coming down and right next to all this trust, we bring that into our system, and we understand what's of value. We understand what we need to expand on. And this is not close bonds. This is, you know, close bonds. You knew that though. So does that make sense? So even any psychosocial dynamic can kind of be inserted into this model. And this is where I want to explain to people that we don't really cross our professional bounds with talk therapists, because what we are concerned about is metabolism. You know, that this wheel keeps going. Okay, so that happened to you. How did your body metabolize that experience? And the meaning of metabolic process is the level of the emotions, the level of, you know, any in utero trauma that happened, do you see? Or at the level of eating nachos and beer at 1 o'clock in the morning. It's at all of those levels. And this is how we practice. And I showed you that to show you what you already know, is that all that you touch, you change, and all that you change changes you. So all those systems in interaction with each other, some of them are compensatory, some of them are they're just all trying to stay in a game. We're all just pulling each other along, you know, making some type of contact with reality is the point, right? And so we keep people in touch with telling them what we see. Oh, I see on your tongue there's this. Oh, I see by the way that you move. And it's not so different from, you know, when I'm in my Milton Erickson study group, I'm like, yeah, he utilized what was there instead of authoritatively trying to get someone to change what they were doing. Like, let's do what they're doing. And they will reveal to you where their resources are, because a lot of times just because you're having a symptom doesn't mean you have the vulnerability in the place that we're looking at either. So it becomes very interesting. So we had that discussion about Zheng Qi and the upright, and the reason it's upright is because it stands there and it, you know, it, I don't want to say takes the hit, but it implies a certain type of preparation. It's everything you did right. Like Sonya, do the right things, right? In the Ling Shu, it says that the nutritive and the protective circulates everywhere. So I'm thinking, you know, where does this protection come from? Does it come from Earth? Because that's the bond, those are the bonds that we need to be nurturing through life. And I was like, so kind of. We'll get to it, but it also comes from the heart. Remember that first main axis, that central axis that Sonya also alluded to. There's a central axis that unites us to our life on Earth, cosmic life, and, you know, from our ancestors. So Yin is the nutritive chi that refers to nutritive essence that helps us to recover and to rebuild. It has to do with recovery. Like when you do take that insult, because we can't just move through life without being hit. When you do take that insult, what's there to help you recover? And we know that that comes, the reason I put earth is because we know that all the yin comes from earth. All the fluids in the body comes from earth. And at the same time, we have this contradiction that the stomach is this hot cauldron. Well, yes, because it has to break things down. Earth has to break things down, but it also has to be built up enough through our human bonds to be able to have nourishment, to feel nourished enough to have that protective chi. And so that's what I think the Wei Chi is. It acts on the surface to protect. It's connected to our pericardium, to our heart protector. It's an aspect of the heart spirit, because the real true heart spirit can never be disturbed. It doesn't actually even know what's going on out here. That it's like an innocent child. It can never be tarnished. And so that's why we can keep taking our patients and reorienting them back in that cycle, because for sure, we have faith that the heart has never been ruined. In fact, hardly anyone has seen, only the heart protector has seen the heart. Almost nobody's seen the emperor. So having said all that, why did I say all that? Because I wanted to say that flavors can be put into this model. And if you think about flavors as embodied directional realities and principles, why, you could be an herbalist too. I mean, with time and practice and observation, because that's how cunning people all over the world learn it. And from watching animals, right? There were no Chinese medicine PhD and all of that. It was from talking like we're talking now. There's a materia medica that exists called the Hui Hui medicine, Lun. And Hui Hui is the way that they called Muslims. And I thought I'd bring it up because it's still Ramadan too. A lot of medicinals that I use for circulation and blood moving are not native to China. These resins, these mo yao, myrrh, sandalwood, things we associate with Africa, the Middle East, those were not present in the region. So when I say Chinese medicine, I'm going to air quote Chinese medicine. I'm just saying that just as a convenience sometimes. There was also the Pax Mongolica, where there was like open commerce. And the Mongols, I mean, say what you want, they did a lot of public health. They really did. They opened the pharmacies. You can do some reading about this. When they really opened the pharmacies, they made sort of forums where there was Skillshare. Anyway, enough about the Mongols, but that is something to remember in these times where, you know, shipments weren't being made in a timely fashion. And we wonder, will it ever go back to normal? Will we ever be able to get stuff from China? I start asking the question, okay, what do we actually need from China? So those are the questions I started asking, especially as people were calling me from their own homes, not able to move out. We had to make adjustments. But then the most important thing at that time became, you know, waking up the heart, calming the spirit, keeping people consoled with their ancestral foods, paying attention to dream states, paying attention to to what extent you can admit pleasure into the situation. I mean, I know that it's a hierarchy of needs going on, but, you know, for the people who were calling me trying to come back to acupuncture, I was like, okay, let's see, can we infuse pleasure to kind of jumpstart that heart? And it's an art. That kind of thing is an art. And this is just another quote, a process of trying to wake up the soul, because we live in an industrialized, fast-paced world that prefers that the soul remain asleep. Right? And we are in different kinds of sleep. We're in our sleep. And my anxiety patients with chronic anxiety, they're in their anxiety trance, which I'm trying to replace with a different kind of more resourceful trance. I'm in my Wednesday after class trance often, not today, not because you woke me up. So here is a little chart with 5 of the primary flavors. There are other flavors that we work with. I wanted to show that to people, please help me with time if I start to go over too much. But salty things is water, soften and purge. You know, people with goiters, I don't know, hyperthyroid, stuff like that. Nodules, you'll want to use that. Sour prevents abnormal leakage. You're gonna find, if you look through, I'm not gonna say everything that's on here, but if you look through, some things cross categories. So you'll have cacao, something like that. It's bitter, and or you'll have cinnamon. Cinnamon is both spicy and sweet, right? So if you have somebody who doesn't have a lot of phlegm in their lungs at all, and the cough, just like with most COVID people, the cough wasn't the biggest deal. They would cough sometimes, but it was the wall in their chest that was most disconcerting. But there was not a lot of cough. I expected it to be something where we would be moving the metal, the lung area, with acrid things and dispersing a lot of wetness, especially when I heard there was nausea and stuff involved. But in fact, I used a lot of bitter to drain and dry at the same time. Used a lot of bitter things. So one of the things I used was, there's shibai is a type of Chinese garlic. I combined that with a medicinal called gualo, which is a fruit that kind of softens, and it's a kind of a cold fruit, any kind of nodules and things like that. So, you know, just to shibai to sort of open up the chest where there was blood stagnation. And then later, after I'd used up 2 or 3 bottles, one of my relatives had, post-COVID, trouble with blood clotting through the lung. She's on 6 months bed rest. And I was like, yeah, I wish I had really, really laid it on thick about getting those mustard greens last time I talked. So people, you have these things around your house, and a lot of times it's just a matter of, not being so biased. What we want a lot is the sweet. We want the comfort, the harmonizing, the moderation of the sweet. Okay, it's like, no, you need all those things. I was invited to a Seder this year, and that plate, I was like, this is a pretty balanced plate. There was salt water, there was a bone, I was like, it was my first time, but, through my lens, I said, this is a really nice plate. Parsley is bitter. That's my contact. And if you don't mind, I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. And I'd like to do maybe a little relaxation before the question and answer, if that's okay. You don't see this anymore, do you? What screen do you see? Do you see me?
It's gone. So I see you now.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Everybody.
Okay, so thank you for your attention, for your presence. Please be seated comfortably and make sure that there is an arm's length of space when you hold your arms out like this. Thank you. You can put them down for now. And next, we're just going to take a few deep breaths. These breaths will be long inhalations, at least 3 or 4 seconds. And then a slower and longer exhalation, 4 or 5 second exhalation. Another long inhalation, followed by a long exhalation. One more time. Breathing in long with gratitude for the privilege of being in this form. Breathing out with awareness that we are in direct communication with Earth, the heaven, the cosmos, destiny. Now, please hold out one of your arms in front of you where in a way that you can look at it and really observe your hand. Find a point on the back of your hand where you can fix your attention. Now, this spot may be where your sleeve is, or it might be a scar. I want you to fix your attention there. At this point, you may choose not to listen to me, or you may choose to be very focused on my voice. Either one is fine. Keep breathing long inhalations, long exhalations, and looking at your hand. Soon you will notice changes. Something comes into focus, something disappears. Something is always changing, whether we see it or not. Focusing on one thing is a doorway into a multitude of processes. Of course, processes can be discretely broken down into finite particles, cosmic sand. By now, your eyes may be closed or so heavy you may want to close them. When you do, you will find that we are on a beach at the seashore. I have a bucket for everyone in this Zoom. I have a bucket for everyone in Chicago. I have a bucket for everyone in the world. We are here to build a massive new structure that is just for our pleasure. The wind is in a playful mood too. As you gaze out at the waters, you may sway with the rhythm of the tide. You may stand still and think of nothing in particular. Making my circuit around the island, I place healthy scoops of wet sand in your bucket. Another scoop of wet sand. And another. One more big, heavy shovel full of sand with which you will create something at your leisure. By now, the bucket must really be heavy, and your arms may be tired. Your muscles may even feel a little shaky. Go ahead and put your buckets down when you're ready. Simply lower your arms. Feel the heat of the sun, its scent on your skin, the flavor of the sun when it soaks into your lips. Your shoulders are relaxed. You let your back muscles warm and slide like jelly. There's some kind of fluid in your back that helps you bend, but it also watches over you as you play. You may want to walk around and interact with others. You may just stay where you are. The beach is covered with fantastic structures and sculptures, but none of it will last. You don't even mind this. It is the nature of things to not last. It is nature that something complex can be affected by the subtle. The sun is going down now. You may leave the buckets for people who will come in a little while. Before you sleep tonight, remember touch, skin, warmth, salt, earth, sweetness. Each time you remember this beach, you will become more conscious of DNA encoded information about doing what is necessary during difficult cycles. Cellular instruction is available on how to regenerate once the cycles have passed. You will create silence and joy and accept suffering. Where pain exists, there lies an opportunity to grow. You will begin to recall that your intention is a direction. You play a role in orienting the world towards its best possible destiny. I'm so very glad that each of you are here with me, playing along with me. Please bring your attention to your hands wherever they are, on your lap or the table, and open your eyes in 1, 2, 3.
We should go straight to questions. Joelle, do we have a bunch of them in the chat? Thank you.
Kids love to ask questions at presentations.
Yeah, thanks, Sonya. Thanks, Khadijah.
Oh yeah, you're welcome.
Yes.
You're welcome.
That was a really lovely presentation and so relaxing. Can people hear me?
Yes, clearly.
Okay, so no one has sent any questions to the chat yet. So if you wanted to go ahead and just go, Dr. Minnie Freeman, and just go ahead and ask questions you have. And if folks could just let me send your questions to the chat, then I can ask them.
I actually have one to do with cost, right? So how do patients, people who want to get treatment from you, but they don't have the finances, or it may be a little challenging for them, how do you deal with that in terms of not only acupuncture, but in purchasing maybe teas and other treatments? How do you handle that?
Me or Sonya?
Either, yeah.
Why don't you start?
Oh, okay. So I have some options, not so much now, but because I work for the school, I actually worked an evening shift that's connected to the intern clinic. It was $10. So that was one option, but you certainly didn't want somebody who needed individualized care or had some, issue with having to be around so many others to go to that. So I also have Thursday mornings that are discounted, and you can't really just sign up for them, but if people call me and be like, I need a Thursday morning this time. So I have discounted, they're like half the price of acupuncture. Honestly, practically speaking, I'll send an invoice and people can pay me over. I've only had one person not pay me in like 9 years.
Mm-hmm.
I have to tell you the truth, and maybe because I don't have this huge giant practice, but I will send an invoice that people can take their time, because I'd rather you get the number of treatments I think will push you to the next. You see that little wheel? I'm like, well, if I can give 4 treatments and get you over here at high noon, maybe by that time, things will change for you.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I would say at my clinic, we do something called community acupuncture, which Khadijah does at the school. And the unfortunate thing with COVID time is we can't offer those services right now, because we can't have people in the room together who don't quarantine together. So we have had some quarantine roommate groups come in. And for us, that's sliding scale 25 to 55, but $25 can still be a lot for people who are out of work. So something we also offer but can't offer now is Nada circles, which we've done at the Women's Center, where it's a donation only, 5 needles in your ear. I'm sure some of the people listening perhaps have experienced that when we've been at DePaul. So we will work with people however we can to get them services. For a lot of us as small businesses, we're making sure that we don't go under. So I know that in a month or two, when Chicago opens up, we'll be able to offer those services again. But in the meantime, in terms of teas, like I said, food is the first medicine. So we can usually, just with food and movement changes, see a lot of improvements with people. And so lots of times I'll have patients who are coming for community acupuncture. They can't afford herbs at all. They can't get any of the teas. So we'll just work at a food level, and find food that's affordable, that's good for them.
Thank you. Joelle, do we have any questions? Amana?
I have, it wasn't a question, but Jessica Williams wanted me to mention what's called here. She has a book recommendation. Jessica Williams is one of our wonderful student workers that work at the Center for Black Diaspora, and she wanted to make sure that I mentioned a book title called African Holistic Health by Layla O. Africa. I don't know if either of the invitees know of this book, but could you possibly recommend other reading materials for those that want to explore more?
One book for people who menstruate it's called Balance Your Hormones, Balance Your Life, or something. What's the name of that one, Khadijah? Is that it?
Yes, Balance Your Hormone, Balance Your Life. Yeah.
It's an intense title, but it is really good for people who are having issues with period, perimenopause, menopause. It has information on Ayurveda, Chinese medicine, other health traditions for taking care of yourself at home.
Thank you. Emana had her hand up.
Yeah, I don't know if this is what it is for other people, but I wasn't able to put anything in the chat. It says the chat is disabled on my end.
That is, but go ahead and ask your question.
Okay. I'm wondering, I have a few questions. The point about like metabolism was brought up. And it's interesting, this is like a perfect event because I just went to a Meridian yoga class where I was talking about the chi a lot. I was curious if there's like, you could expand upon like metabolism of like both experiences and of like how birth can impact someone's health like later down the line. It was just really intriguing to me, so I wanted to hear a little bit more information about like how you use that holistic like approach to treat patients.
Talking to me?
Yeah.
Yeah, you talked about metabolism.
Okay. Yeah, well, it's all metabolism, right? It's all metabolism as we kind of walk this earth. We are taking in a lot. Because you talked about us being porous beings, right? So for porous, we have to be able to discern what's for us and what's not for us, right? So there are different mechanisms at all kinds of levels. At the level of prenatal trauma, is that what you're asking me?
Yeah, that's what I was really curious about.
It's a really big subject. Everybody knows that what the mother takes in nutritionally impacts the child. But for us, there is the additional connection between the womb and the heart, this bao mai, this envelope, this sort of conveyance, so that whatever is in the heart impression, which is sort of like, it should be a void, but there's impressions that come over the heart, can be conveyed to the womb. And so this is how, this is one of our explanations for how mother's state of mind, so also there's a chemical explanation for that. What does adrenaline do? But there's also, in our context, it makes a lot of sense too, in a water fire sense. Fire is what opens the womb. Fire is an aspect of the orgasm. So all of these things are connected. So what happens in the water phase while we're forming is very unconscious. So there'll be sometimes deep-seated things that people are not even conscious of. It wasn't their own stuff, right? Listen, in Chinese medicine, it's very unpopular here, but in Chinese medicine, everything is your parents' fault. So I can approach my clients where I know, they're like, and I tried it. I'm like, I know, it's not your fault. It's your constitution. It's your ancestral lessons that need to be learned. It's and we do the best we can with determining what's this authentic expression of this person, what's their best possible reality right now.
So let me
physically there's trauma too during birth. Like, the Japanese style will do mirroring techniques where all around here you can treat the sacrum. Heart hits against your mother. It has to do with how you formed congenitally. It's all kind of interconnected. So there can be physical trauma. There could have been psychic in utero trauma conveyed via the heart connection to the womb. I mean, I also get a little insight into fibroids with this too, like how was this allowed to enter that space? Because the womb, like the heart, is an empty chamber too, for the most part. There's a lot of mirrors there.
Thank you both. And for all the knowledge and information. I have a lot to think about. And so I appreciate it. And I will have to go, and my class will have to go. So we just want to offer our gratitudes for your knowledge and your wisdom and your understanding. And thank you.
Yeah, and before you leave, also, you and I are also co-organizing that other event. Would you like to tell them a little about Adaku?
Adaku Uta is also a healer and a community organizer, also engaged in transformative justice practices, healing justice practices. She's based right now in New York, and I don't know if I can do this with the participants, but send out more information about her because I don't have her bio in front of me. But
Yes.
you can find her on Google, Adaku, Adaku, Uta, Utah. She's the founder of two amazing projects called Harriet's Apothecary and Beatbox Botanicals. Yeah, just a beautiful visionary, healer and organizer. So that'll be next Thursday from 3 to 4 p.m. And if you're interested in that, I'm happy to circulate the information for that, as is Julie and the Center for Black Diaspora.